Right. Let's go ahead and kick it off. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out to the Texas Multifamily Masters chapter. I'm glad to see we still had a decent turnout given it's December. I know the holidays are winding down, and for those of you that are in real estate, which I hope all of you, everything is starting to shut down. So, that said, we host this once a month, right? It's usually basically we'll send out emails the week before and the day of. And so, we'll start to line up a whole series next year, but thank you all for making it out. Really appreciate it. And, with that said, today, who here owns assets? Hopefully all of you, right? And so, one of the topics that we know there's a lot of mystique is maybe what I want to say around, right, is asset protection and how should you structure things, right? I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of unknowns. And so we figured that'd be a very good topic to kind of wrap the year up with. And so that'll be the topic for today. But before we do that, let me go ahead and introduce myself and let our partners introduce themselves as well. I'm Ferris Musa. I have a company called Disrupt Equity. We buy property. We're based in Houston, Texas. We have properties throughout Texas and Georgia. We're also vertically integrated and have our own management company. And to date, we've done somewhere over 3,000 units. And my less handsome partner, Ben, most of you know, was not able to make it today. And so neither was John Montero out of Dallas. I know he had another webinar going on today for his a deal he's buying. And so with that said, I will hand it off to Anton, who is part of the Dallas chapter. Anton, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Anton Madley, co-founder and CEO of Peak Financing. And as Ferris mentioned, one of the co-leaders of the MFM Dallas chapter. Before COVID-19, we had a number of large events, and we definitely have to step back up and restart the live events. So in the meantime, we have been co-hosting these monthly Zoom meetups together with Ferris and the other Texas team. And so I'm passing it on to Ronnie, who is the only one on the Dallas side was able to make it tonight. So we have a lot of competing webinars and Zoom calls tonight. So I'm certainly happy to see all the people who are on this call tonight. Ronnie?
And Tom, thanks. My name is Ronnie Phillip. I'm with the Kingley Group. We're a real estate private equity firm focused on Class A new development. We focus on the Sunbelt region. We've bought and sold 572 units, primarily across Texas and Georgia. And I'm really excited about this topic on asset protection. I think Aaron's going to bring a lot of value to the audience. So I'll pass it back to Ferris.
All right. Thank you guys very much. And so with that said, most people are not here to listen to us. They're here to listen to our awesome speaker. Aaron, thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening to come present to everybody. Right, I think you'll have a captive audience. And for those that have never attended, typically we'll do about a 30, 40-minute presentation, then kind of open it up to Q&A, right? I know a lot of people will have questions, right? Everybody's scenario is a little bit different. And so we like to kind of make it a little bit of an open mic. And so with that said, Aaron, thank you very much. You want to go ahead and hop on and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
I've been traveling all day. I'm in a hotel room in Orlando, Florida. I started this morning in Washington State, and I got here. My suitcase didn't get here. Neither did the power cord to this computer. So I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to so you guys are going to get this presentation and we won't drag it out. Okay. That said, a little bit about me. I'm a lifetime entrepreneur, started my first real company with W-2 employees back in the spring of 1983, and sold that company, started another company, sold that company, was an officer of a public company, a financial services, NASDAQ company. Did that for 3.5 years, made a lot of money in the stock, and started buying companies back in 1997, and have been doing that ever since. One of the companies that I bought was the original Nevada incorporation service called Laughlin Associates. And Laughlin is celebrating its 50th year in business this year. So we're really excited. We're having our 50th anniversary all year long, and it's been great. The topic that we're going to cover tonight, listen, we've got all kinds of strategies, all kinds of asset protection, tax planning, multi-state, multi-entity strategies. We have all of those things. We work in all 50 states. We have clients from all over this country and from all over the world. And so I can talk to you about lots of stuff, but tonight we're going to talk about the foundational pieces that if you don't get these right, the rest of it doesn't matter. And so with that, let me go ahead and share my screen and pull up these slides. And then I'm going to ask someone there to confirm that the slides look right. Does it look proper to you guys?
Looks good, Aaron.
All right, very good. So what I want to do is teach you to don't make this mistake, okay? So as I said, we have currently 40-some, high 40-some thousand clients, 48-ish thousand customers who are using us to provide services to them. Why do entrepreneurs and investors and so on, why do they use corporate structures? Well, primarily for lawsuit protection, for tax benefits, protection against creditors, right? So the company can be in trouble, the company can have a lawsuit, the company can have a problem, it can die. You don't have to go down with the ship because the entity separates you, the owner, the shareholder, or the member of an LLC from the business project. So really that middle one, protection against creditors, is the primary reason that entities exist in the first place. Estate planning, you know, these entities don't have to die. They get a new shareholder, they get a new board of directors, like Laughlin Associates, which is a C Corp. Laughlin was started by a guy named Harley Laughlin back in 1971. Later, his son, Harley died, the son owned it. The son died, the widow got it. The widow engaged her sister and brother-in-law to come and run it basically into the ground. Then their lawyer went looking for a buyer. They found me. My partner and I came in, bought the company. So there you go. You've got 4 different owners already. And then just recently, we've put Laughlin into another company, and it will be publicly traded in the short term. And so then it'll have thousands of owners, but the company's still there. It still exists. So from an estate planning standpoint, an entity probably properly set up will keep on going even beyond you if there's a reason for it to exist beyond you. And the last one there says prestige and credibility. And maybe that seems a little silly, but I'm just telling you, there are times when if you're president of, Acme Real Estate Holdings, that's going to get you further than just being, Bob or Mary, and I invest in real estate. Okay, there's something about the legitimacy around a properly organized entity that just takes a little bit of the edge out, makes people a little bit more willing to listen to the story. So maybe that's been your experience, maybe not, but I'm going to tell you, we've been doing this for a long time, hundreds of thousands of companies over the years. And I see it time and time again when people show that their entity is properly organized. It helps them get the loan, get the government contract, get the investor, get the fill in the blank, get the thing they need, because they're treating this enterprise like a real, legitimate, mature business. And those are the primary reasons that I hear people want to use business entities. Now, how do you get all these benefits? The benefits come if you can manage to keep you, the shareholder, and the entity, separate. And this is a thing that a lot of people struggle with. They form an LLC or they form a holding company, maybe a C Corp or something, and then they start telling everybody how everything is their thing. It's their stuff, their homes, their apartment buildings, their trucks, their tools, their whatever, their bank accounts. And I'm just telling you, if you think like that, you will tend to make mistakes. You will tend to do things as though the company is your alter ego, is just another checking account, just another piggy bank for the things that you're doing. And you'll start to commingle, and that's where problems pop up as we go along. So what do we want to do? We got to keep you and it separate. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite sayings is this: I am not the corporation is not me. I'm not the LLC is not me. If you guys will just take a moment and write that down and highlight separation and put a couple underlines under it, it will save you problems down the road. I can absolutely guarantee you that. So the key is separation if you want to get the benefits. So there are three main business entities: C corporation, S corporation, limited liability company. Those are the three that almost everybody uses. Now, you guys do a lot of real estate investment. My guess is that many of you, and I don't have any way to do a poll here or anything, so I'm just actually, you know what, let me do this just for, I wonder if I can do this. No, I'm not going to worry about it. I was going to do by a raise of hands or something. My guess is that you guys have LLCs that are holding different projects, right? LLCs are super common, super popular right now for good reason, particularly for holding real estate, for holding oil and gas investments, leases, wells, for bringing two or more people together to do an actual business. So you can have just one project, like let's say one apartment complex can be sitting in an LLC and the only member is you, or maybe it's a holding company. Or if you're doing a business, like let's say you're building these things, then if you had two or more people involved, you may want to have, they're all actively involved in the business, you may want to use an LLC. That said, LLCs are not like a new, cooler, shinier, upgraded version of a corporation. They're just a different tool. Just like a hammer, a screwdriver, and a saw. They're all tools. They all have a different use. And you can't say, oh, I'm going to go build a house. All I have is the saw, but I know the saw will do the job. That will do part of the job. I want to put into your mind that there are specific ways of using these different business entities to get you the greatest result. And so whether you're using LLCs to hold stuff or LLCs for, let's just call them quote unquote partnerships, or you're using a C corporation as your management company, or whatever you're doing, whether you have a C corporation, an S corporation, or an LLC, they all have one thing in common. And that thing is they're all required to do corporate formalities. They're required to hold regular board meetings, keep minutes, pass resolutions, issue stock. They're obligated to act like a legitimate company. All states require this. Now, LLCs, I want to cauterize this argument quickly. LLCs were originally designed so that they didn't have to do corporate formalities. They were designed, they were statutorily written so they didn't have to have board meetings, have a board of directors, and do all that stuff. However, there's a level of law that supersedes statutory law, and that's called case law. And in all 50 states, LLCs are required to hold board meetings and so on, just like corporations. The only exception to the rule is one-member LLCs in South Carolina. So if you happen to be a one-member LLC in South Carolina, you can disregard the whole corporate formality thing. Everybody else has the obligation to do it, okay? So let's go on and talk about why this matters, and then we're going to come back around to the steps that need to be accomplished in order to make sure that you're doing it. You're checking all the boxes, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. Okay. The corporate records are designed to show the company is legitimate, but if you don't act like a legitimate company, and if you are ever examined, like in an audit or a lawsuit, and your corporate records are not in order, then the auditor or the adversarial attorney, the plaintiff's attorney, can come in and say, oh, you're not acting like a legitimate business, like a legitimate entity. So we're going to treat you like a sole proprietor. All these things that you're able to deduct, all these protections that you were hoping to have, no, you don't get them because you didn't follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, you don't get the benefits. Follow the rules, get the benefits. Don't, no, you're flapping in the wind. So if you're doing this for the additional tax benefits and tax credits and access to SBA money and ease of getting investor money and so on, you want to make sure that these things are all dialed in and being done properly, legally, because all 50 states require it. Now, if you're doing it right, there's all kinds of benefits that come along with a properly organized entity, right? I mean, this whole concept of individuals get taxed and companies take deductions. Think about that. Individuals get taxed, companies take deductions. C corporations can even carry losses forward for 20 years. So you can have the company provide, as I'm sure a lot of you have figured out, the company can pay for a lot of stuff, your Wi-Fi, your cell phone bill, certain kinds of entertainment. I know people that have, they work from home and their company decided to have a home gym or to have a gym, a health program. They pass a resolution and then they go take a room or their garage and fill it full of equipment and they write it all off. And I'm not a tax guy. I'm not your CPA. I'm telling you what I've seen happen many times and be blessed by the CPAs. Obviously boats, airplanes, self-care sort of things, hiring your kids. There's so many things you can do as an entity. And if you want all those benefits, you want to make sure your company stays compliant. So what I'm saying is to get this pre-tax life, to have a properly organized corporation or LLC equals big benefits, right? The benefits are fabulous, but with those big benefits come responsibilities. And the biggest mistake in our industry, in the asset protection industry that we see, the biggest mistake that owners make is their failure to document their business decisions, their failure to follow the rules that the government has laid out to make sure that entity is fully fleshed out, fully realized. When they skip this step, if they're examined, it can all just be thrown in the gutter. It can just be wiped out. The formal documents are the only thing that prove that you, the member or the shareholder, are separate from the company. And remember, I'm not the corporation is not me. I'm not the LLC is not me. Separation, ____. The documents, it doesn't matter what you and your other associates have agreed to. It doesn't matter about your email string. It doesn't matter about any of that. Your corporate record book, whether it be a physical book or a digital book, must be following the formal methodology that the government expects, that the government lawyers or tax auditors are used to seeing. It needs to follow a format where they go, oh yeah, this individual or these people, they understand the rules and they're following them. When you see the things are being done properly, if you're being examined, if you're in a lawsuit, you're in audit, you're in bankruptcy court, you're trying to raise money, you want to get a government contract, you are applying for PPP loans or any kind of other, government backed stuff, they want to see that stuff. They want to see, and if you're doing it right, the odds of them moving you quickly forward go way up. If you are a big mess, I'll tell you what, I was talking to a private equity guy today, and he said, I'm so tired of looking at opportunities that look like they could be good opportunities, but that people have no concept of good financial record keeping or corporate formalities. And he said, if they can't even keep their own financials and their own corporate compliance, just the basics of actually operating a real business, then I don't want to invest money with them. I don't want to put money in, because that tells me they're probably going to be sloppy in other places. Does that resonate? Does anybody, all I can see is Anton. It's the only face I can see. Does that resonate with you, sir? You gotta follow the rules.
Absolutely. It's
All right.
crucial.
It is crucial. Okay, so the formal documents prove that you and the company are separate. There's something that we hear out there in the legal world called piercing the corporate veil. Piercing the corporate veil. And the corporate veil is simply the part that keeps you separate from the entity, from the business. Piercing the corporate veil happens when you haven't followed the rules, haven't done the documentation, haven't acted like a steward of this separate paper person, this other entity. Piercing the corporate veil is a result of not following the rules, the law. Okay, so let's go on with, oops, I moved something on my screen. Let me do it again. Now, the most audited entities out there, or not even entities, most audited circumstances are sole proprietors. They get more audits than anybody in the business world. Followed closely by one-member LLCs and S corps. Okay, why? Because typically the government understands that typically one-member LLCs and S corporations are kind of usually mom and pop. They're busy trying to be in business, do their thing. They're not, if they're even thinking about records, they're thinking about financial records. The idea of acting like a formal board just seems silly. I mean, why would you do that? It's just you. It's just your self-directed IRA money. It's just your maxed out credit cards. It's just your bootstrapping of your projects, right? It's just your stuff after all. Well, the government knows that you don't see it as separate. And so they go after those kinds of companies because they know they can collect money from them. And that's what the auditor's job is to collect money. They're also easy to sue because they assume that single member LLCs and S corps tend to be small businesses that don't have deep pockets. And so if they bring a frivolous lawsuit against you, some silly, ridiculous plaintiff's claim, and the lawyer's working on commission, they know that they'll either win or you'll settle with them quick because you can't afford to fight. So these are the ones that have the greatest likelihood of being sued or audited. Okay. Now, even if somebody decides to target that one-member LLC or that S corp, they can target them. What we want to do is stop the lawsuit before it really starts. And that's done by showing your adversary, oh no, our corporate veil is intact. Oh no, we have the full weight of the protection of the law, of the government behind us. These rules will protect us because we've followed the rule. But here's what Wake Forest Law Review says about piercing the corporate veil, that it's become the most litigated issue in corporate law. In every case, the plaintiff's intent is to acquire the personal and business assets, and at least half the time they win. Okay? Think about that. Piercing the corporate veil. These lawsuits, first thing they want to do is try to pierce the corporate veil so that it's their treasure chest isn't limited just to the company, but it's also to anything else you own. A lot of people say to me, well, why do I really care about this, Aaron? What's the big deal? You know, we're just getting started. We don't have a lot of cash. We don't have a lot of equity. It's not a big deal. You know, we don't really have anything to get. And I say to them, well, do you have anything else? Do you have equity in your home? Do you have savings there? Do you have college money for your kids? Do you have a boat? Do you have a second home? Do you have a coin collection that your grandpa left to you? Do you have art over your couch that's got some value? I mean, what else could there be to get? Because the goal of your adversary is to get everything you have. That's the goal. And I'm not trying to be crazy about this. Anybody that's been through a lawsuit knows what I'm talking about. Anybody who's been through it knows what I'm talking about. So piercing the corporate veil has become the most litigated issue in corporate law. And the goal is to get the business stuff and your personal stuff. And at least half the time they win. So what do we need to do? The first thing is you have to start acting like a real business, which includes holding regular board of director meetings. And you go, but wait a minute, there isn't a board of directors. I'm the only one. I'm the only one. And I say, okay, the law doesn't say how many people need to be on the board. It just needs to say that the board is meeting. Remember, the shareholders or members elect the board. The board decides the big issues for the company. Should we sign that contract? Should we borrow that money, loan that money, do this deal, give ourselves a raise, change CPAs? I mean, the board decides that. And then when the board makes the decision, they give assignment, they give a slip called a resolution to the president, right? So, and you go, yeah, but I'm the only shareholder, I'm the only member of the board, and I am the president, and maybe I'm the only employee in the company, okay? So it seems crazy that I need to go through these gesticulations to have this experience, to get this done right. Well, I'm just telling you, every time you're thinking about those kinds of decisions, you're holding a board meeting in silence, but in your brain. You're holding a board meeting. Those things need to be properly taken out of here and put into the right format, written down, put in the corporate record book, following the law. Because it doesn't matter how much you had the board meeting up in your mind, if it can't be looked at by an auditor or in a deposition or at a bank or, you know, anybody that might want to see those documents, if it's not written down, they can't go into your mind and pull it out. So you've got to hold regular board meetings, not once a year, at least once a quarter, at least once a quarter. And in some companies, when you're kind of doing a lot, you may need a board meeting every month. You know, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it needs to happen. So we got to hold regular board meetings. You need to keep minutes of those meetings. Minutes are basically, hey, these people got together on this day at this place and talked about this stuff. Okay. Even if it was just you in the shower thinking about what was going on, you can say, you know, the board met on this date and to consider, you know, whether or not we should, I don't know, change CPAs, get a new CPA. And there was discussion back and forth, right? That's what the minutes say. These were things that were on the mind of the board. These were the things that seemed important to consider for the company. Again, all 50 states require by law that minutes be prepared and maintained in a written form. It is your record book. Let me be clear. The record book, remember I said a minute ago that your entity is a paper person. In the eyes of the law, the entity is a paper person with the same rights and responsibilities and opportunities and obligations of a normal flesh and bone human. The only thing the entity can't do for itself, it can't think and it can't speak. The board of directors does the thinking, and the minutes and resolutions, the book, does the speaking. It says, here's what happened. It's the history of the company, okay? So even if you're doing it by yourself, driving down the road, dozing off to bed, standing in the shower, wherever all of a sudden you're thinking about commitments and bigger decisions, not operations, but should we do this? Should we do that? I think it's time. When you're doing that, you're in board of director mode. The things that you're thinking about need to be written down into a proper set of minutes. And the decision that you make on that topic needs to be written down as a resolution. The board resolved to receive a loan from an investor on this new project, right? A resolution is a written document that describes an action. It was decided on by the board of directors or the managers of the company, if it's an LLC. And then that resolution is the permission slip from the board to the president or the manager to go and do something. Okay. I know you might be both people, both positions, but it still needs to be done in order. There's a reason for it. If you want all the tax deductions, if you want all the legal protection, these things must be done. Okay. Oh, let me show you. So people always say to me, what are you talking about? What's included in all this? So I asked my team, I said, just give me the most common. There are literally hundreds of things that should be documented by board resolution, hundreds. I said, I don't need hundreds. I don't need all of them. What I need is some way to graphically describe when I teach people about this, that there's things they need to be paying attention to. So this slide is a sample of the most common things that we see because we do this work for people. Here are the most common things that need to be memorialized as a proper legal resolution from the board of directors. Don't try to write it down. Don't try to take pictures. Just try to keep up and read some of these, okay? Okay, so here's my question for you. Are you in compliance? I already know the answer for many of you, because as far as I can tell, as I've been teaching this throughout the country for a number of years, probably 95% plus business owners, especially closely held companies, 1 or 2 owner companies, are not doing this. Bigger companies that have a board of directors, sure. Smaller companies, almost never, even if they know they're supposed to. Cornell Law Review says if you failed to keep proper corporate records and if you're ever sued, you have a 50 to 94% chance of losing your personal assets to satisfy a judgment. So if you get sued and you didn't do your corporate records, you have a 50 to 94% chance of losing your personal stuff to satisfy that business judgment. The documents, the minutes, the resolutions, issuing stock, you know, if you have not issued membership or stock, depending on what kind of entity you have, if you have not taken that certificate out and put your name on it and listed in the ledger that you have this share and this many shares, if you haven't done that, you don't even actually own your company. Because as long as you treat it just like it's your alter ego, no reason to sign a stock certificate. However, if you put money into somebody else's entity, you would want, as an owner, you would want some proof of that. So if you're separate from the business entity, the entity should give, you're putting in capital, they're going to give, the entity is going to give you back shares. It's going, the board is going to list that. The board secretary is going to list that in the stock ledger. And it shows that you are a shareholder or a member of that thing over there, that LLC or that corporation. The documents are the only thing to a creditor, to a litigator, to an adversary, the only thing that separate everything you have in your life from this one project. There's a reason why many ski resorts have every chairlift in a separate corporation, because if somebody falls out of that chairlift and breaks their back or dies, the loss will be limited to the assets of that one corporation, which is probably just going to be insurance. It's not that family of the injured or deceased person isn't going to end up owning the entire resort. There's a reason why back when New York Cab Company was all the cabs were owned by the corporation, every 2 yellow cabs were in separate corporations. If you've ever been in a New York cab, you know why they would do that. They're very dangerous. So they would limit their risk. You guys do it by separating projects into different LLCs. So what we want to do is make sure that if there's a problem in one place, it doesn't bleed over onto everything else in your life. And the only thing that will prevent that mass destruction are proper corporate documents. That's the thing that's going to separate you. Now, here's my little gift to you. Anybody that wants us to, we sell this thing for $399. It's your free gift for our becoming involved with your program. We do something called a business snapshot. A lot of people have more than one business entity. They're trying to figure out what's my next step. And I've got this investor, or what, I don't really know how to characterize this money that I put in, or I've got this one entity, is one S Corp. I don't really know what it's for. I don't know how these two things work together. So we have something, we've been doing this for 50 years, and we call it a business snapshot. We normally charge $399 for it. Anybody that decides to go to limitmyrisk.com and just ask for one, we will give you a little questionnaire. We'll take the information, we'll create the snapshot, we'll fill in the blanks, we'll call you up and tell you what the deal is and what's going on. And it will give you a roadmap to know where you are now, how the various pieces that you already have fit together, or if you're getting started, give you a roadmap for how to properly move forward, and also where you've got real liability, versus where there's not a lot of liability, where you may need a bunch of corporate records and where you may need just one meeting a year. If you're interested in that, we would like to give that to you. Sure. And I'll just tell you, sure, if you fill it out and we talk to you about it, and then you go, well, what do I do about it? And if we have a solution, we will tell you what our solution is, but you're under zero obligation to do any business with our company. We're already very grateful for the being at the live event, for a number of people who decided to work with us. And here's what I know. Our renewal rate is 87%. Once clients come and work with us, they tend to stay working with us unless they go out of business. And so we want to earn your trust and earn your business and help you. And if we look at this with you and you look at it and we go, yeah, everything looks pretty darn good, then that'll be the end of that. But if there's something that's missing, it's going to be valuable for you to at least know it's missing, regardless of the resource you choose to use to fix the thing. Do it yourself, hire a lawyer, go to your CPA, call your, Aunt Thelma, or, use a company like us. Whatever you choose to do is your choice. Let me just finish with this little story. Remember the story of the three little pigs? The three little pigs were these little brothers, and they were out there and they had their homes. They'd all built homes and they were happy and they were having a great old time of living out there in the country. And the two of them were just loving life. They had their 5-acre lot. They had a beautiful little home. They were just having a great time, enjoying the beauty of the countryside. They couldn't figure out why the one brother was so freaking uptight. And then one day, the big bad wolf shows up in town. The big bad wolf knocks on the first little door of the straw house and says, little pig, let me come in. Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. And he does it. He huffs and he puffs and he blows the freaking house down. And that little pig runs as fast as it can to the house made out of twigs, the other brother's house. And they bar the door and the wolf comes up and he says, I'll huff and I'll puff. And he does, and he blows it down. And now these two little guys run as fast as they can, worried for their life, to the brick house. The person who went the extra mile to build his house properly. And the wolf pounds on the door and huffs and puffs and threatens and blusters all over the place. And no matter what he does, he can't blow the house down. Now, in the story, he tries to get in by the chimney, and they build a big boiling pot of water, and he goes in there and he dies. But we can't do that to a lawyer or to the IRS. So what we have to do is just build a strong house. But here's what we know about the little pigs. Nobody gave any advance warning that the wolf was coming to town. Just one day, the wolf was there. And if you've ever been in an audit or a lawsuit, that's how it works. They don't kind of warm you up You just, boom, here it is. And the thing that's really interesting is that most people I meet are in a house of straw or a house of twigs. I've told you enough tonight that there's no reason for you to not end up with a house of bricks. It's completely going to be up to you if you choose to do that, if you're going to be a victim of the wolf, if you're going to be like one of the three little pigs, or if you're going to protect yourself and build that house of brick. So if you want, go to limit my risk, fill in the form, we'll build out that snapshot, we'll call you back, we'll send it to you. It will give you specific actionable things that you can do to ensure that your business is doing things properly, and that your several business entities, if you have those, have a logical way of working together. And if you want us to, and we'll get on with your lawyer or your CPA or whatever, we've been doing this forever. And we just want to make sure that you're safe. My personal goal, Aaron Young's personal goal with my incorporation resident agent businesses and with my private equity company, my personal goal is to help as many businesses as I can stay in business for more years, making more money. So as many businesses as I can stay in business for as many years as possible, making as much money as possible. Because when we keep more companies in business, hiring people, making money, that is the best thing that will support our local communities, our country, and the world. Entrepreneurs do the heavy lifting. 86.3% of GDP is produced by companies of 50 employees or less. 86.3% of gross domestic product is created by companies of 50 employees or less. We must keep entrepreneurs safe, secure, and profitable. And it starts with following these basic rules so that your business will protect you when it gets threatened. And that is the end of that presentation. And if anybody has questions, I will do my best to answer them. And somebody's going to need to monitor that for me.
Yes, so I'm happy to do that. Thank you very much, Aaron.
You're welcome.
Great presentation. Now, for everyone, please put your questions into the chat, or if you want to do it live, just either mention it in chat or raise your hand, whatever your preference is. Now, also after the Q&A, some of you already have been on, you know that we will then go out into breakout rooms so that you can network with each other afterwards. But obviously, first we want to give you the opportunity to ask Aaron questions. Now, just I would like to start out really with a comment, right? And that strange accent of mine is, I was born in Switzerland, I grew up in finance, I worked in investment banking around the world, and I have been now in commercial real estate for 30 years. And I can tell you that, particularly also from a lender perspective, I've experienced as an investor, but also from a lender perspective, if a deal goes south, we have an army of lawyers that can be deployed, which means that these lawyers will do everything possible to get to the money. And obviously, if a deal doesn't have any money left, guess where they go? Whether it's a non-recourse guarantee or not, the goal is to pierce that non-recourse into a recourse so that they can go for the guarantors that thought it was recourse. And actually, what Aaron has mentioned is just one of these many tools that the smart lawyers have in their toolbox, is to identify some formalities that have been missed and potentially then open the opportunities. So now another element really I wanted to quickly touch on before we go to these questions is that many of you probably have heard plenty of presentations about asset protection, right? From offshore protections to to Montana companies, Wyoming companies, to Delaware companies, and all the discussions where you should go to set up all your various structures. Aaron brings it down to the most basic level. Regardless of where you are, if your formalities are not in order, it doesn't really matter where you set up your entities, right? So that is really, I think, the key message here for everyone. And as Aaron has mentioned, I think many of us, when we, and including myself and many on our teams, when we are honest with ourselves, we always struggle to keep all these formalities in order. We, on our end, we essentially have our lawyers and CPAs constantly reminding us what we need to do, so we do it, right? So someone needs to remind you, and if you don't have these reminders, you probably will not do it as a busy business professional. So just as a kind of a general comment, Aaron, do you have some other?
Yeah, just Anton, I got one private message in the chat, and it said, well, what are your fees to do this? And let me just be clear. And there's no way for me to sell you anything tonight. There's no special, there's no link, there's no nothing like that. We're offering the one thing. We're going to give you something first. But I will say this, the service that we provide is all done for you. It's not a reminder service. It's not blank documents. It's not a workbook. Our people call you, interview out of you the information that needs to be organized. We know what needs to be documented. We know the questions asked. We do this for tens of thousands of companies, and it's inexpensive. Is it acceptable to tell a price, Anton, or not?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, your first company. Let's say you have 3 companies. Your first company is $9.99. And that goes back in time 5 years and cleans everything up that wasn't done, and it goes forward for a year. So it's a 1-year service, during which time we'll do from today forward for 12 months, plus go back and get your records caught up for the period of time that is most typically looked at for an audit or a lawsuit. So for $1,000. If you have 2 companies, the second one or third one is not $1,000, but it's $595. And then if you have a whole bunch of LLCs that do virtually nothing, don't have a lot of action, we will, depending on what you've got, because sometimes people come and say, I have 45 entities, and other people say I have 4 entities. So we'll just design an appropriate thing for your circumstance based on the volume. But the main thing is your main operating businesses, that's where you need this stuff done. But you also need your initial organizational meeting. You need your annuals. You need all of those things, even if the company doesn't do anything but just hold one property. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. That is the question I got.
Sure, absolutely.
And Troy, yes, the procedures for an LLC and a corporation are identical.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So, Aaron, you mentioned that you will go back for 5 years. Is that generally the look back that that is at risk if there is a piercing issue?
Well, typically, especially in an audit, they're going to go back up to 5 years. So what we want to do is when the auditor sits down with you in your conference room or your house or wherever you're meeting, what we want them to do, because the very first thing they're going to do is open your corporate book. It's the first thing they do in an audit. They want to know, are they dealing with a sole proprietor or with an entity? And because they can get a bunch of money back from you if they can determine that you've treated the business what they call like your alter ego. It's just your own piggy bank. You didn't keep it separate. So what we want to do is as soon as they open the record book, they go, oh, look at all these minutes. Look at all these resolutions. Oh, here's a proper stock ledger. They go, oh, dang it. This person seems to know what they're doing, which is going to discourage the auditor. I'm telling you, I've seen this tons of times. The auditor wants to find a chink in your armor as quickly as possible, because what they want to do is start to threaten you, start to freak you out, start to get you nervous and start doing dumb things. But as soon as you show them, oh yeah, I know the rules, I've followed the rules, then they go, okay, we're going to do a quick look over this, because if their financials look pretty good too, we're going to move on, because I can get my quota, and auditors have a quota, you guys. Don't misunderstand. They have a quota they're supposed to get for every audit. That's why they don't like to audit great big companies, because it's too hard. It's too much resources. They'd rather get a small company to find an extra $5,000 or $6,000. That's really what they want, right? In the least amount of time possible. So if you can get, or if it's a lawsuit, if that predatory lawyer is trying to pierce the corporate veil because somebody's doing some kind of a slip and fall or whatever, if they look at the record book and go, shoot, these guys are bulletproof, we can't get through. So I no longer want to work on contingency, on commission. You need to now pay me $600 an hour and I'll represent you, but you need to pay me my hourly fee, because now I think it's going to be hard to get through the corporate veil. See what I mean? So yes, we go back 5 years. We'll go back further. We'll go up as far as 10 years. We have a platinum program. It's $1,500. We'll go back 10 years. That's really for people where they had a former partner and now they're getting ready to do something with a patent or something. And they really need to make sure they have no contingent liability as they move into the next phase of something. So most people don't need that, but you know, that's up to you to figure out. If anybody's got the hair coming up on the back of their neck, you know, going, oh, damn it, I better figure this out. You know who you are already. And, you know, when we talk to you, if you want to talk about those things, you'll decide if you think there's something you're kind of worried about from your past. Most of this is prophylactic. This is stopping a problem, doing it now so that when a problem raises its head, you're prepared.
Very good, thanks. So Mark asked a question, is it easier to attach judgments to owners of a single member LLC?
Well, here's the deal with a single member LLC, especially as an operating business, right? LLC's limited liability company was designed originally, started in 1976 in Wyoming was the first LLC law. And it took a while to go to all 50 states. It was an upgrade to a general partnership. So if Anton and I are going to come in together, instead of being general partners, we're going to be members of this LLC where his risk is limited to what he's got in the business. And so is mine. So if something bad happens to you, if my kid rear ends somebody, right, and they come after me personally, they can't come in and take the company. The worst they can do is take distributions that would have been going to me. They can't even take ownership. They can only take the money. Or if the LLC doesn't issue any money, there's something called the charging order. They'll just hand the 10 not 1099, the K1. They'll just hand the K1 to the judgment creditor and say, oh yeah, we made money this year. Here, we're not distributing it, but here you go. Now you have to pay taxes on this money. It's a discouragement for people to even want to take that, because somebody can end up with a tax bill for money they never got, right? So LLCs have all these built-in protections, but they're designed from a operating business perspective. They're designed for 2 or more actively involved in the business members. It's to limit our liability from each other. So the answer to your question is, if you're the only member, then they treat that entity as what they call a disregarded entity. And they say, well, the only individual that can have liability is you. So that's the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. So what's then the purpose of having a single member LLC?
Well, ideally, you'd have like a C corporation up here that would be the member of the single member LLC. And the single member LLC just holds an asset. If you're going to have an operating business and there's only one owner, or some people say, well, me and my spouse are the members. But the court, the law sees spouses as one member. Whereas a corporation, you can both be shareholders, but in LLC, your estate is one member of the LLC. So I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here, but the point is, single member LLCs are easy to transfer assets in and out of. That's why we use them for real estate and for oil and gas. But as an operating business, and a single member LLC is worse in almost every way than an S Corp or a C Corp, including how you get taxed on the money you take out of the business. If it's your operating business, you can't take a W-2 income. You have to take a distribution and you have to pay self-employment tax. So you're being taxed at the highest rate, which if you had two members, then you have 4 different ways to talk about being taxed. You can decide, and you'll do whatever's proper for your industry, for your assets, for your revenues and profits. LLCs are fantastic when used correctly, but most people just think they're like a shinier version of a corporation, a less stodgy version, which is just absolutely wrong. But people have just gotten comfortable saying, I'm going to form a corporation. They say, I'm going to get an LLC. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we see a lot of people who come back are what we call event driven. They've had a bad experience because what they thought was going to work for them didn't work. And then they come and go, okay, I can never let that happen again. Mm-hmm. And then we fix it. So yeah, there's the answer. I'm trying to be sensitive now to your breakout rooms.
Yeah, no worries. I think these are great answers, right? Again, I think obviously that goes beyond the scope of our discussion here. I think it's really important for everyone to understand that if you properly structure your business and your personal life, more likely than not, you cannot just run it with an LLC alone. You need to have a holding company or whatever it might be, or a administrative company, a management company. So it's just something that I think is important, but obviously it's beyond of our discussion here. So Mark also asked, how long do you have to keep corporate records for? You mentioned that you do the look back for 5 years to clean it up, potentially 10 years. So from a tax perspective, you say it's 5 years, right? But obviously from a lawsuit perspective,
from an examination perspective, it typically is only goes, because there's a statute of limitations. After a certain period of time, even if you've never filed or paid taxes, they can't go after. I think that's 10 years. Mm-hmm. But from a corporate formality perspective, you're going to keep them forever, as long as the company exists. It is the history of the company. I've got 50 years of corporate records of Laughlin Associates. Mm-hmm. And we do at least a quarterly meeting. With all this work we've been doing on going public, we've been having meetings every month.
Yeah. Ashish asked, and where should the records be kept?
Well, typically, the traditional way to do it is in a corporate minute book. And if you've gone to like LegalZoom or your Secretary of State, you don't probably have a corporate record book. As a matter of fact, you don't even have a fully fleshed out company, because if you have an LLC without an operating agreement, it's not real. It's like you paid a fee to the government, but you didn't actually form the full entity. If you didn't have a proper initial organizational meeting, the government will just ignore it. They'll go, you never did it. You didn't do it right, right? I say it's like you buy a ticket I'm in Orlando. So if I go buy a ticket to Disney World, to the Magic Kingdom, and I pay $130 for it, which is like paying the state to file your name with the state. And then I just turn around and walk away and I go to the beach or I go to the mall or go play golf, and I'd never go in the Magic Kingdom. I paid somebody got money from me, but I never got what I bought, right? I never got it. And that's what most people who do things the cheapest way they can figure out how to do it, they usually have an incomplete result. and they'll never know they have an incomplete result until the audit, until the lawsuit, until I saw so many people who applied for PPP money or EIDL money, but because they didn't have the right documents, they didn't get it, right? And they could have gotten it. They could have gotten it, you know?
Yeah, it's an excellent point. Yeah. Yeah.
So there you go. That's the answer.
Yeah, very good. So I think these were all the questions. So Aaron, thanks again for joining us tonight, and thank you everyone for coming on. As mentioned, as a tradition, we after our presentation with a guest, we have our breakout room, and that's what we do now. The breakout will be around 15 minutes, and then we come back, and then we will just shut it down afterwards. But anyone who wants to hang out afterwards obviously can for as long as you want. So thanks again, Aaron, for your presentation and answering all the questions. Really appreciate it. And again, guys, whether you use Aaron's firm or anyone else, just realize that formalities, all these little things that we are all annoyed about, that we have to deal with on a daily basis, these are very often the things that are crucial to really protect ourselves. We always want to think in big terms, but ultimately it's only the small items that really protect us.
It's always the details, right? Well, guys, thanks a lot. Go to Limit My Risk if you want anything, if you would like us to do that complimentary snapshot. All right, good night, guys. I'll look forward to seeing you another time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Aaron.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So guys, we will do the breakout rooms now. So see you there now.